Hi, it's Louise Platt at Spiral Bright Insight Astrology. And if we've not met before, I am an intuitive astrologer. I work with fixed stars, celestial bodies, the planets within our solar system, and so much that lies beyond to really add depth and more, insight into this beautiful practice of astrology, reading the stars, reading the skies, and hopefully translating their wisdom and helping us all to understand how what is happening out there is having a direct influence on our own experience of reality and our own day-to-day lives. So it's great to have you here, and if you are a regular, thank you so much for your support. So I want to talk about the full moon in Leo, which is on the 1st of February. What a way to start the month of February. And quite frankly, February is going to be a magical month. Sort of having an overview already of what is coming up. There's a lot happening, but this is a really beautiful way to start the month with the sun in Aquarius and the moon directly opposite. So the full moon is in Leo at 13 degrees 3 minutes of Leo, with the sun at exactly the same degrees in Aquarius. And for us in the UK, which is where I am based, it is happening at 10:09, 9 minutes past 10 o'clock in the evening. So adjust that for where you are in the world. Some parts of the world, it may be on the 2nd of February, which, in itself is really beautiful because you have then got this beautiful energy of the 2-2. Which is magical in itself. But we're going to talk about the moon, some of the themes. We'll look at the chart, and I'll talk about some of the fixed star energies. And as you always, I do work very intuitively. You'll see when I pull up the chart, there is a lot of glyphs on there. But if you're finding that overwhelming, please just listen to what I'm saying, and I set the intention that you will receive the insight that you're meant to, and hopefully you may find that I repeat a lot of what other astrologers are saying, but I also hope that perhaps I am sharing something that gives you a different perspective or a different idea as well, that can just unlock some new insight, because that is always my intention. So Leo is the 5th sign in the zodiac. This is fixed fire, and it's very much an energy of the heart. Leo is all about visibility, being seen. It's ruled by the sun, so there's a really strong solar energy coming through, which is all about light. Leo is also linked to the lion, so we have sort of the lion heart, courage, radiance, and also kind of lighting up from within, being seen. So this is the full moon chart, and as I said, I admit there are a lot of glyphs on this chart. I tend to work with certain asteroids at certain times, so this gives you a flavour of what I'm working with. But if it feels overwhelming, then please do just listen to what I'm saying, rather than necessarily needing to track everything on this wheel. But we've got here, ignore the house placements because that will change depending on your location, but we've got here the sun 13 degrees, we've got the moon up here in Leo, and immediately I am drawn to the fact that asteroid Atlantis, is just so close to the sun at this full moon, and this is really, really beautiful. So again, just bringing back the divine feminine energy in here, and also noting that on the other side of the sun and Atlantis we have got Vesta, who is a goddess in her own right. She's the goddess of the hearth and home, the sacred flame. She is there holding this beautiful energy, benefiting from the light and the rays of the sun. And then Atlantis is there as well, merging with the sun. Again, there is something coming to light that we may feel very emotional about. Don't forget that full moons are times when our emotions can feel quite intense, because the moon does affect how we feel. There is something that we are being called to shine a light on, but also to reclaim. And here it feels very much as if it might be the more sacred feminine expression of our Atlantean story. Now, so often when we think about Atlantis, you know, we kind of see it, and this includes me, we see it from a more scientific, more head-based narrative version of the story. But, you know, there was a lot of magic and beauty that formed part of Atlantis. You know, this wasn't just a short moment in time. You know, this was a huge part of Earth's history as an ancient civilization. So it's about pulling on the more feminine expression and components of our Atlantean experiences and our Atlantean history, and also all the knowledge and the wisdom that was part of the Atlantean experiment, and bringing it back, pulling it back into the heart, and really starting to create that beautiful balance and that equilibrium between the heart and the head. And, you know, I've said this before in other videos that I put out, but I really see this time as, you know, we're moving forward, we're stepping into a new age, we're creating this new earth, but we're leaning on and kind of leaning back into a lot of what has come before. So many beings, people, souls on the earth at this time have got memories of ancient lifetimes, of other star systems, of other timelines, where perhaps, you know, we might consider experience and reality to have played out almost like a golden age. And this is really about bringing back certain elements, certain gifts, certain pieces of information, insight, wisdom, and ways of being, and pulling them in to really help us create what it is that we are moving into. So, you know, it is almost like calling on, you know, the golden parts of the golden age and bringing that through to, as a almost like a pillar or a foundation for what we are birthing ourselves and creating and stepping into as we move forward. So it's about being able to pull from all these different timelines. And of course, I'm talking about solar energy in the golden age. You know, this light does feel very golden. It feels very, very special. And with Vesta here, you know, she is reminding us that, you know, what we might see as an ancient time gone by, there are certain things, certain aspects, and certain pieces of just, you know, magic that were never forgotten, that could not be extinguished. And a lot of them are carrying that, or a lot of us are carrying that within us. And it is about it being remembered, it being activated, it being accessed at the perfect time. And it feels like, you know, this is a really key moment for a lot of that. So we've got this beautiful energy, and also with the moon over in Leo, there is Varuna, who is the god of cosmic law, order, and justice, you know, sitting so close to this moon, almost saying, you know, it's time to bring things back into order, to almost reinstate our world, and to bring a much more ethical, truthful, authentic, and accountable way of being. So this is all about integrity. It's about divine judgment. It's about bringing everything back into alignment with a higher order, weaving in higher wisdom, but also having universal truth at its core and at his core, and really, you know, exposing secrets, exposing where people or, you know, events may be playing out that are not coming from a place of complete authenticity and integrity, the all-seeing eye, making sure that everything is fair and just, and that where it may not fall into that bracket, that we or humanity or whoever is held accountable. So again, the sun is opposing Varuna. There is a real sense of, you know, anything that is not in alignment with moral order and, you know, that is ethical is likely to be very visible at this time. Now, we can't see it on this chart because unfortunately the Astro Gold program does not have asteroid Medusa, but Medusa is at 11 degrees of Aquarius. So she is sitting here next to Vesta. You know, their energies are weaving together, but she's also got the light of the sun, and she has got the support of Mars in Aquarius at 7 degrees. And this is really, really beautiful, because this for me feels like almost like the collective rage, perhaps, you know, about the injustice of Medusa's story, the violation, the betrayal, the silencing of the divine feminine, the female goddess. This is somehow being almost burnt or purified with the fire of the sun. But also if we bring in the energy of Aquarius, this is collective for sure, but it's also about setting ourselves free through being able to see something from a higher perspective. So the wounded feminine is very much present in this chart, and it is about, you know, the invitation to step into our power, but also reclaim the power and the aspects of the self that have been exiled, they have been suppressed, they have been betrayed, they have been denied, they have been silenced. So this is such an empowering chart from that perspective. We've also got Pluto, and this is Estrella, the goddess, the star maiden, goddess of justice, sitting together at 3 degrees of Aquarius. And you know, I'm talking about the golden age. Estrella, remember, she was there, she was part of the golden age when the gods sort of, you know, roamed our lands, and you know, there was just recognition and a realization that we are magical, that we are powerful, that we are divine beings. And Estrella, you know, stayed as long as she could. She witnessed the downfall of humanity. She was forced to leave in the end, but she's said to sit in the Virgo constellation, overseeing in pure sacred devotion, waiting for the time when humanity is ready to remember. And then it is said, again, this is Greek myth, it's really beautiful, that she will return and she will guide us and help us remember the old ways as a bridge to creating the new. So she is there sitting next to Pluto, which is all about uncovering our shadow, we're seeing parts of the self that perhaps, you know, we have dared not seen or not been able to see, but also the collective. So there's a beautiful kind of energy of evolution and growth coming through their conversation. And then another asteroid that only came into my field last week through another astrologer mentioning it, but this is Chaos, the star that looks like it's sitting at the top. It looks like it's an opposition. It's not. It's a quincunx, because Aquarius to Cancer creates this quincunx, but the fact that Chaos is there, sort of engaged with Estrella and Pluto, you know, there's a little bit of a disconnect. You know, Chaos is like kind of, well, Chaos is chaos. This is all about sort of a restless energy, confusion, overwhelm, destruction, not necessarily having a direction, but also boundless energy, huge creativity. If we think about, you know, from chaos was born everything. So we cannot create without chaos. And this is really beautiful, because chaos is having to have a conversation with Pluto, who wants to evolve, who wants to transform, who wants to, you know, create this momentous change within society, within the collective, within humanity. Estrella is also calling on the past, but she is also holding the torch. She has humanity's sort of best interests at heart. She's completely devoted to the return, and yet chaos is there as well. And it's like, we cannot have this change, we cannot have this return without chaos, without instability. You know, we have to be at ease with the change, but it is also a route to setting ourselves free and to accessing higher and more quantum insight and information that is kind of the invitation through Aquarius. So that feels absolutely beautiful. And, you know, just going back to Medusa and Vesta, there is this kind of question, you know, are you still afraid to shine because of what happened before? You remember, so many of us remember times when it wasn't safe to shine, where we did fall, where, you know, the gifts that we have access to and that we're remembering and calling on were somehow seen as dangerous. And this is kind of understanding that in this age, radiance and power and your light is not going to cause collapse, but actually, if you suppress your rage, if you suppress your power and your light, then that potentially will. It's about, you know, being able to have enough courage to be seen and to be shown, to show up, because the world is ready for leaders who remember who they are, who are not here to play power games, who are not here to dominate, to lead from the ego, but to lead from the heart. And this is absolutely all over this full moon, and really leading through 2026 is going to be such a key theme. Now, again, Also in this chart, I can't pull it up because Astro Gold will not include asteroid Hawaii, but Hawaii is at 4 degrees of Scorpio, and it's next to Haumea, who is the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. So Hawaii for me is an asteroid that I use to kind of locate the energy of Lemuria in a chart. I know there are other asteroids that we can use, and I know also in my colleague Miriam, in her presentation at the Quantum Soul Guidance Summit, she talked about looking to the opposite placement of Atlantis to see where the Lemurian energies is coming in. And if we follow her sort of cue, that is coming through the moon and this beautiful solar energy and the heart. But we've also got Haumea and Hawaii sort of talking together in this conversation. And this is really about, you know, connecting to the earth, to connecting to what is hidden, bringing that divine feminine back into coherence, coming from the heart. And, you know, just understanding that we are birthing the new. It is based in what has come before to a great extent. We're also bringing in the energy of the future through Aquarius, and there are squares from Haumea, Hawaii to Astrea and Pluto. So it's like, yeah, timelines are blending, merging, sort of shifting, coming together so that we can almost pull on the gold pieces from the past, bring in the gold and the diamonds that are coming from the future, and start to really create this new earth. And of course, with Haumea, I'm always reminded that she gives birth in the most unusual and unexpected ways. So again, and with Aquarius as well, this is a very sort of expect the unexpected type energy. So, you know, you might be looking for new earth in a different place to where it actually is. And I think, you know, the overarching theme that I keep sort of tuning into, and I hear other people talking about it as well, this is, what we are kind of creating is not a place outside of ourselves. It is coming from within us. It's coming up through us. It's rising through us. So sometimes we can't see that because, you know, we can't always look inside, but it's about having the trust and the faith and the confidence to just bring that to light, which feels stunning. Now, of course, this is the first full moon or lunation with Neptune now fully in Aries. Neptune is not going to go back into Pisces now. You know, this is the start of a new era. So this is kind of lending itself to vision, you know, potential, very creative energy, but it almost has a life of its own, a force of its own, and it's a really strong creator energy, particularly at the 0 point here of Aries. You know, this is a new beginning, the 0 point. We are creating something new in our field, and it hasn't been done before, but it absolutely has to, says the moon, and the sun has to engage both head and heart. We cannot continue to survive and to thrive if we are fully in our heads and we're completely obsessed with the science and understanding and the logic. But we also need to, you know, use that and lean on that in order to support the heart center as well. And of course, so many of us, you know, we are disconnected from our heart centers, or we've forgotten the power of our heart. So it's about bringing that in to create the new. And just before I come back to the screen, there is also this beautiful connection with Mercury and Chariklo. Chariklo is Chiron's wife. You know, she was a nymph, but she was a great healer. She is very much about holding space and serving the role as sacred witness to this healing process that we are going through. And Mercury, so close, you know, the same degree as Chariklo, just feels beautiful because there's a new understanding that actually sometimes, you know, it's not about jumping in and trying to fix everything and make everything happen. Sometimes it's just about presence alone that can trigger that healing. So, you know, there is this understanding that suddenly we can see that almost the universe is bearing witness through these beautiful stellar energies in the chart to this massive change, this massive shift, and this massive awakening ultimately. Venus there also very close, adding in this divine feminine energy as well, and almost reminding as that it's okay to stand apart from the crowd, you know, to sing your own tune, to dance your own dance, to embrace, you know, what it is that makes you unique. Sometimes some people might kind of think it's weird, but actually the more you stand in your own stream, you know, that you sing your own song and you sort of just embrace what it is that lights you up and makes you special and unique as an individual. That is how, you know, you can add value to the collective in ways that are almost impossible to measure. So there is a lot going on in this chart, which is kind of normal. And I do feel sometimes as if I only scratched the surface because there were a lot of planets and alignments that I didn't draw attention to. But I want to just go over some fixed star energy. And if you've watched any of my recent content, you may have heard me talk about bear energy, which has been coming in quite insistently for me over the past few days. And, you know, there's a lot of symbolism, there's a lot of messages with bear, which I have been tuning into, but it made much more sense to me when I realised that this full moon is very close to a fixed star in the Ursa major constellation, which is the Great Bear. So I'm referring specifically to a star called Dubhe, Duhbe, and that is at 15 degrees of Leo. So well within, you know, the tight orb that we use for fixed stars, in a strong conjunction to the moon. And Dubhe is one of the stars, if we think of Ursa major as the plough or the Big Dipper, Dubhe is the star that sits on the lip of what we might kind of refer to as the saucepan. So other side of the handle, opposing side, and it is very much a star that is pointing to Polaris, which is in the Ursa Minor, the little bear, and that for you know, many of you will already know, sits at 28 degrees of Gemini. So we're working with bear energy. The sun and Atlantis and Vesta are very much sort of shining their light, giving their power through to this bear star, to this Dubhe energy. And, you know, that is really, really beautiful because we've talked about visibility, we've talked about radiance, we've talked about showing up as the full and true self. I probably should have added, because it's just come to me sort of since, that Leo is a strong energy of play and fun and joy and creativity, so highly creative energy. And it's also linked to child and the inner child. So it's interesting that the bear is coming up at this full moon because I think a lot of us, you know, have fears around showing up, have fears around being seen, being visible. Again, we talked about the witch wound slightly earlier in this video, but it's also can be a lot of conditioning from childhood or earlier in life where we're told not to make a fuss and not to be too full of the self. And of course, Leo needs us, wants us to be full of the self, because what else would you be full of other than the self? So this is about perhaps doing some inner child work around this full moon and just reassuring your inner child that it is safe to shine, that it is safe to be you. You know, the energies are shifting. We're moving into a very different time where, you know, it's important, in fact it's vital, that we show up and really sort of present all of ourselves and our full energy and remember our full power, because this is how, you know, as leaders we pioneer and we step forward into new earth. So with the bear energy, there's a real sort of well, it's very feminine, very nurturing, very wise energy. The bear is obviously very connected to the land, but also to being fully embodied. It's a very grounding energy. And of course, with the bear, you know, we often sort of think of the bear as, you know, retreating into its cave. It spends time in the year hibernating. So this is a reminder that sometimes to be able to access your full power and step into your full self, you might have to come away from the crowd. You might need to spend a little bit of time in isolation, but this is only so that you can cut out the noise and the distraction and the views, opinions and expectations of the external world and others in order to really tune in and remember and connect to your true heart and your true authentic self. So this is about, you know, again, you know, not being scared to stand on your own, to be the full self that you came to be, but also acknowledging that it's okay not to be switched on all the time, that, you know, being Connecting to your heart does require you to come into stillness. That does require you to, again, retreat from the outside world. And I think this is a key message. And this is about being settled rather than restless. And with so much kind of Aquarius energy going on, it might feel very noisy. It might feel that, humanity and the collective has gone a little bit mad. It's all being shaken up so that it can realign and recalibrate. But it may feel that you need to come away from the outside world at times and almost not focus on the heart, rather than kind of tuning into and giving a lot of attention and focus and energy to the mind and to that chatter, because it is going to feel quite disruptive, I feel, as well, because there is still so much Aquarius energy. So it's reminding you that spending time in rest mode is actually very powerful and should not be, poo-pooed. And coming into and trusting your instincts, because of course, the bear is a very instinctive, it's a primal animal. So it's kind of saying, there is no rush here. This is about orientation, and sometimes it takes us to be fully present and still and at one with the self before we can fully access our power, before we can get those insights, before we can switch on our full light. So it's about slowing down, seeing the bigger picture as well, and just kind of leaning into that support that Bear is here to offer. It's very, very healing energy, and it's a reminder that our true direction often comes when we come into stillness and we connect with that inner point. And of course, the Polaris, which is the North Star in Ursa Minor, is also giving us the same message. And Isis, asteroid Isis, is very close to Polaris at this time, reminding us of how when we do come into stillness, we can often, pull in all those seemingly fragmented or separated pieces to come back into a sense of wholeness and reclaim our power. And this is deeply feminine energy coming through all these alignments. And it's also reminding us to trust our instinct over and above external validation. And really, that is the only way to remembering who you truly are. So that is really, really beautiful. And then at the same time, the sun and the moon are in a square to Acrux, which is a star in the Southern Cross. This is really powerful as well. We have some beautiful symbolism here, but it's all about navigation, almost like people and, sailors, travelers, seekers would use a crux as a navigational tool to almost show them where they were on their travels. And so this is kind of like, you have to tune in, you have to be able to pay attention to almost be directed into towards the direction which is now right for you. And there's also this reminder with the cross, and I often talk about this, it's such a beautiful star, that the cross is formed with two pillars, the vertical and the horizontal, and that it is about coming into that middle point. That's the heart of the matter, the crux of the matter. That's where the gold is. And so again, with the moon in Leo and this really strong heart energy, it's reminding us to come back to the heart, use the heart as your navigation, use the heart as a compass. And that is where you will find the deepest sense of stability and presence and fullness of self. And a crux is also an anchor, so it's anchoring in these higher frequency energies into this full moon chart. There's also symbolism of endurance, which comes through, and that also comes through the bear symbolism, alchemy, and faith, and an understanding that, sometimes growth does require periods of challenge, hardship, and pain, and suffering is often part of the human journey, but there is always purpose in that. And a crux gives us the faith and the resilience to keep on going. So that is really, really beautiful. And with this square, it's creating a T square. It's like, come back into the self, ground yourself, root yourself. Regardless of what is happening outside, it's coming back to your inner compass and trusting where that is leading you. And of course, with Crux as well, we're reminded that if you join the four corners of the cross together, you have the diamond. And this is really about reminding us that sometimes, the most beautiful things are formed from the deepest pressure. So, pressure is part of the journey. And the other energy fixed star that I just want to bring in is the fact that Chiron at the 23 degrees is approaching a conjunction with Acrux, which is in Eridanus, the celestial river. And Acrux is the star that was believed to be at the end of the river until Achernar was discovered and added on to this star system. So there's a real kind of sense here of getting to the point where you're almost at the end, but you're not quite there. If we think of Achernar, it sort of opens out into the ocean, into the realms of higher consciousness. And with the river, there is this reminder that, life is, or this whole journey is really about the journey. It's not about the destination. We're all going to go back to source. We all come back to a point of expansion and enlightenment. What's important is what we learn along the way and the experiences that we come up against and the growth that triggers. So using the physical vessel as almost the channel or the carrier, the boundaries for the river to flow, the water, being spiritual, our spiritual self, and really allowing the body and the physical vessel to, create the path and the route, knowing that sometimes it's going to go off in one direction and other times it might slow down, it might feel blocked at times, it might kind of rush forward at others, but it's about trusting the process and kind of being in the flow. And also what's really, really beautiful with Eridanus is the fact that it is a long constellation, which almost, reminds us that we can, our journey is not finite. It's not sort of reduced to one piece or one timeline particularly. We can tap into this kind of eternal stream of consciousness and subconscious if we're willing to be open to the possibility and really pulling in what has come before to guide us and to take with us as we move towards the next step on our journey. So that is really, really beautiful. And it's kind of almost that understanding which can give deep healing, because it lifts us out of the kind of feeling that we're being victims and that suddenly, everything's going wrong, and reminds us that everything is happening for us rather than to us. So that is also a really, really beautiful star. And the Pegasus energy, the way shower, the magical flying winged horse, is still very much present with Saturn at 28 degrees of Pisces. So, there's a lot of magic in this full moon chart, and I hope that I've been able to kind of share that with you, and that, you've received something special from what I have to say. So I'd love to invite you to join my mailing list if you're not already on that. I've been trying to promote that a little bit more recently. You will receive a weekly cosmic currents update where I share day by day what's coming up and how I'm interpreting the energies. I'm also trying to be more present and active on Instagram and on Facebook. So if you are on either of those platforms, please do look me up. It's Spiral Bright Insight. And, if you feel that my content is, helpful and you've got friends who would find it useful as well, then, I'd love if you can share my content. Reminding you, just as we finish, to hit the hype button. I'll be completely honest, I have got no idea what it does. Some sort of new feature of YouTube, but it sounds cool. So yeah, I'd love you to hype this video and also express your thanks with the super thanks button if you feel called. So have an amazing full moon week. I'm going to issue this a little bit early so you've got time perhaps to watch it and sort of allow the energies to build up and feel into what is going on for you, because it does feel like a very special one. So sending lots of love, and I will be back soon.